Well, good day and welcome to you. It is April the 13th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs and just take a moment to just let you know if you want to know more about this information, I've included links for you to do some investigating yourself and you can see if there's any truth there. But there's a lot of different links for a lot of different information in reference to this, what we talk about here. Some of those links talk about this information directly, know who and what Maitreya is, talk about him in that way, and those kind of things, like the Share International site. Other links that I provided are talking more about the priorities of Maitreya, which are, I think, just as important, if not more important. So hopefully you'll take advantage and look at some of these. Okay, so now I've had a lot of comments come my way this week. I do want to focus on two. But Joyce Chu, Stephen, is it Azel? Jason M, XXYX, let's see who else. Cliff Sun Ajong, Robert Pola, and then Prior Naime. I want to thank you guys all for commenting, but I do want to just focus on Evan Bella Adam and is it Kathy Miller? Is that right? Yeah, Kathy Miller's comment. And hopefully this will help us kind of understand this information just a little bit better. All right. Now, Evan Bella Adam wrote, "True love is not in saying, but in doing the things that allow others to learn and to also feel love." So I'm addressing this comment because it's a beautiful comment, but I also want to kind of broaden it out, if that's okay, Evan Bella Adam, and talk about it in reference to this information and one of Maitreya's biggest priorities. Because a few videos ago, and for the life of me, I can't remember which video it was, and I don't feel like going back and listening to all the videos that I put up. But a few days ago, I said that one of the biggest problems, or actually the biggest problem in the world today, is a lack of love. Not a lack of love as an ideal, but a lack of love in terms of being manifested on this planet. Now, the Masters and Maitreya are coming back into the world to teach humanity how to love. Not as an ideal, but as in practical, real measure in real time, and not just maybe of some kind of way. Because it can manifest in real time, in real life, now, in this day and age, right? But it's only going to come with the principle of sharing. Now, Maitreya says without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. And without peace, there could be no future. Without peace, there could be no future. And we're even seeing today, in reference to what's going on in Ukraine, how that conflict in and of itself is destabilizing the future and putting in jeopardy the future of humanity. More and more world leaders are talking and speaking on TV, and they're serious. They're not just exaggerating. And I do think they have a point. They're referencing this as this could lead to a third world war, which would end life on this planet if that ever happened. It's not hyperbole. It's not exaggeration. This could happen. So any conflict, but especially when there's a conflict as between a nuclear power and another nation, and potentially other nuclear powered nations, that would be it. And there's no tactical nuke and then that's it. Let's just let it go. It's going to be that, and then another one, and then it's going to just continue this retaliation over and over and over again, and then it's going to escalate to the point where there's no life on this planet. And it doesn't matter. And I watched this video, infographics, and it was like, what nation would be the best nation to live in if there was ever a third world war? And they said Fiji. Even if you lived in Fiji, you're totally isolated on a uninhabited island in the South Pacific, you're toast. Because the radiation is eventually going to get to you too. There's nothing that's going to save us, any one of us, from it. Even if we're in a military bunker a mile underground, it will eventually get to you too. There's no way around it. So that's why peace is so important. That's why Maitreya says that we got to do this. But it starts with the principle of sharing. And I know I talk about it a lot. And if you look at this information from a mystical viewpoint, of course, you might be going, yeah, here we go again. He's talking about the principle of sharing. It is the most important thing that we could be looking at. It will start to manifest goodwill. And from the master's point of view, goodwill is the lowest aspect of love. I even included a link talking about the Marshall Plan. And if you go to Wikipedia and you search Marshall Plan, you'll see a list of the nations that participated in the Marshall Plan. And as of recording of this video, not one of those nations has attacked another nation on that list. But historically, they were at war with one another in some way. But since then, they haven't. And it's been 75 years since the Marshall Plan ended. And yet, none of those nations have attacked one another. And historically, they were at odds with one another to the point where they were, violent toward one another. But as the recording of this video, none of them have done it. So it does bring about goodwill amongst nations, the principle of sharing. Maitreya is advocating that we do this ongoingly and globally. So love would manifest as goodwill initially. It would start to bring about trust amongst these nations. It would start to help us solve some of these major problems that seem insurmountable, because the nations would be working just ever so slightly better together than they are today. But over the eons and eons and eons that the principle of sharing will be going on, it will eventually manifest love perfectly on this planet. But not right away, but a long time from now. But it's got to start somewhere, right? And that's how it's going to start. So if we look at the world today with commercialization and how it's everywhere, really, that's destabilizing the planet. But if you look at the three economic ideals, capitalism, socialism, communism, every nation subscribes to one or other of those ideals, but there's not a nation that does any one of those perfectly, without exception. There's a blending of them in some way. Even in the United States, that considers itself a pure capitalistic nation, has socialistic tendencies. It's just that the socialism that would normally be given to the everyday person on the street is given to the rich instead of those people. And the very, very little is given to the people. And the rich and the politicians that are bought off by the rich are very good at convincing the people that they don't need the money, the rich need the money. I mean, how great of a grift is that? And yet there are people who will literally give up their own life for a system that does not care for them and cares for the rich. That's how ingrained it is in the psyche of the people in the United States. But make no mistake about it, the United States is a socialist country. It's just corporate socialism, socialism for the rich, for the donors that give money to the politicians as legalized bribes. That's exactly what it is. If you look at Russia, which is supposed to be a communist country, well, let me ask you, if it's a pure communistic country, then why are there oligarchs there who have huge yachts, hundreds of billions of dollars? How can its one leader, Putin, have apparently a net worth that's on par with Jeff Bezos? That would not exist in a purely communistic country, now would it? So they are not a communistic country, pure. There's capitalistic tendencies within them. Now, Maitreya would say, eventually, he's going to tell and teach humanity eventually that the best system is a blending of capitalism and socialism, where he would say the best proportion would be 80% socialism, about 20% capitalism. He says it's like two wheels on the same cart. You can't have a cart that goes very well if it just has one wheel on it, or one wheel that's super huge and a tiny wheel. You know what I mean? It's got to have that kind of proportion for it to really work and be beneficial for its people. And nowhere, as of the recording of this video, there's no country on the planet that comes close to that. Even the closest nations would be the Scandinavian nations, which historically has always been ranked as having the highest quality of life, happiest people, healthiest people on the planet are in those Scandinavian countries. And they're not even close to that 80%, 20% capitalism. 80% socialism, 20% capitalism. They're closer than perhaps the United States, but they're not even where it needs to be. So, but yet the people are always, every year, are always ranked as being the happiest, the healthiest, and having the best quality of life. Always. Not the United States, not Russia, not China, those guys and gals, right? So, I don't know. To me, it's like a no-brainer. But that But the principle of sharing in and of itself would bring about the manifested love that's needed on this planet, but it's beyond, it transcends capitalism, socialism, and communism. But because it has to do with the resources of each nation. And every nation has resources in excess, but every nation also has needs. So it's not the United States giving aid to a poor country and it's a one-way street. It's even the Sudan, even Somalia, even the Congo, even, the poorest nations on the planet have some kind of excess to give back. It might not be as much or as great as, let's say, a nation like China or Russia or the United States, but it has something. And it would give, and there would, that kind of thing. But if you look historically at what happened right after World War II with the Marshall Plan, that would give you kind of an idea. But it rebuilt Western Europe nearly overnight. It created an economic boom in the United States because of the Marshall Plan, which happened in the 50s. Historically, that's true. It happened. And the United States is a very capitalistic country, and it didn't have anything really to do with capitalism. It didn't have anything to do with socialism. It had nothing to do with communism. It was something totally different. It's a natural function of life, really, because everything in cosmos really is sharing. The sun doesn't charge us for its sunlight. It gives it freely. And that's the problem that we have in this world is we're privatizing every aspect of life because we see each other as separate. Maitreya is coming to teach us that we're not separate. We are one. We're one family. That's the difference. So, but it's going to have to start somewhere. But if we did just that, if we started just that, Benjamin Creme's masters say a lot of these problems would be solved at a stroke. It would be almost overnight. Hunger gone. Almost immediately, it would be gone. It would ease the tensions. That in and of itself would ease the tensions that we all live. Even those people who are not starving, who have means, who have a life and have a house and can travel and all that kind of stuff, who middle class, upper middle class, and the rich are being affected by the poor. They don't see it, but there's actually tension within their own psyche that's caused by this economic disparity. The future of their life is in jeopardy, just as everybody else's is, because of that disparity. Because within that disparity of the rich and the poor nations, as Maitreya says, a seed of a third world war. And we're already seeing this conflict going on, and that could escalate. So it's imperative that we bring about peace. Now, hopefully that adds to it, but I did like what you have to say, Evan Bella Adam, based on what you're saying. I think it's beautiful. Now, the other comments, Joyce Chu, Stephen Uzel, Jason M, XXYX, Cliff San Ajong, Robert D. Piaola, and Prior, is it Naya May? I do thank you guys all for commenting. I do want to focus in on what Kathy Miller had to say to kind of end the video, because even though it's a religious comment, and I do kind of get bored about commenting about religious comments, I do want to read this because I do think there's something to this, and I want to focus in on this, if you guys don't mind. What did Kathy Miller have to say? Well, of course, she just quoted the Bible, and I believe this is in Matthew. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. I wonder if they're talking about extending and making permanent daylight savings time here in the United States. I'm kidding. That was a bad joke. Then, this is what I want to focus on. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is the Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall rise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there the eagles be gathered together. Okay, gotcha. All right. So thank you, Kathy, because I really want to talk about this, because people bring this up all the time. Now, what I believe Matthew was talking about Doesn't really have a lot of reference to what, I mean, it does have reference to what we're talking about here, but maybe not what you're thinking. Benjamin Creme, when he made the announcement that Maitreya was on TV, he told everyone that was a part of his group in the Share International group not to tell anybody, even your closest associates, friends, and family members, that that person on TV is Maitreya. For this very reason. Maitreya is on TV not claiming to be the Christ for this very reason. Because, and so in a way, you're almost confirming what we're talking about here. And I've even had people, some of them have asked casually, not knowing the importance of what Matthew was talking about here, or what Benjamin Creme was talking about in terms of not, identifying Maitreya on TV. I've had others get very belligerent with me about it. And in either case, I've always said the same thing. I can't give it to you. One, I haven't recognized him on TV yet that I know of. I have a suspect, but I have not recognized him on TV. But even then, I would not be able to say it either way. So even when I know that's him, you know what I'm saying? I'm not supposed to say to anybody on this channel, even my own mother, even my wife and my kid, that's Maitreya. That's who I've been talking about these many years. Maitreya has even said, though, do not run after me. When you do, you've already lost me. And it was a classic example of this when Benjamin Creme made the announcement that he was on TV. All these people started diving in the internet trying to find it, calling up television stations. Have you heard anybody on TV that might fit this thing? And they settled in on Raj Patel, who was not Maitreya. He was just happened to be an Indian fella speaking with an English accent, talking somewhat about justice at the same time that the announcement was made. Maitreya might not even appear to be as an Indian. He can look however he might have blonde hair at this point. I don't know. So, we don't know how he looks on TV. But that's the reason why he's not claiming to be the Christ. And even when asked, when he was living in the Asian community of London, people were starting to suspect him as the Imamati, which is one way of looking at the awaited teacher from a Muslim perspective, because that's what the Muslims are waiting on. Every religion is waiting on a teacher to come back. Every single one. They're all waiting on the same individual. They just aren't aware of it and don't see it that way. But they are waiting on the same individual, which happens to be Maitreya. So they see him, the Muslims are waiting for the Imamati. And they saw him as that. And some people were starting to suspect it. And they asked him. And he never said, oh yeah, that's me. You got it. You know what I'm saying? What he said was, well, if I'm the Imamati for you, who's the Christ for the Christians? Who's the Kalki avatar for the Hindus? Who's the Messiah for the Jews? The mortal enemy of most fundamentalist Muslims, Jews, Hindus. They've been at each other's throats for centuries, but yet they're all waiting the same teacher. But he said these just create confusion in the minds of men. They're just terms. He goes, I just prefer to be referred to as a teacher. So think of him like your third grade teacher, but yet just on a broader scale. Really, that's all he is. He's an elder brother. Somebody to kind of look after us, kind of tell us, hey, this is how we live. We're one family. We don't need to live like this. That's who Maitreya is. So, even now people are starting to recognize him according to Benjamin Creme's master. And he's not claiming to be Maitreya. He's not even claiming to be the Christ, or anything, or even just the spiritual teacher. He's just presenting himself as an ordinary person. That's all he is claiming himself to be, for this very, very reason. But yet there are people who go around saying they are the return of the Christ. Those are those ones. Just as there are people in Hyde Park, England, who claim to be the Queen of England. They're not. But there is a Queen of England living in Buckingham Palace. But she doesn't go around going, I'm the Queen. I'm the Queen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, she might to some degree, but Maitreya doesn't do that. You know what I mean? But there are people who say that they're Maitreya. In fact, one of the individuals who was picked to make known the presence of Maitreya, just like Benjamin Creme was, thinks that she's Maitreya. And so it happens all the time. Even little old me, I was giving a talk in Sandy Springs, Georgia, years upon years ago, and there was a guy in the back of the audience that his legs were crossed and his hands were crossed, and he had this scowl on his face the entire time I was talking about this information. Eventually stood up toward the end of it and interrupted me and goes, "I'm the Christ, come back. Not the guy you're talking about." So, I mean, it happens all the time. So, yeah. I mean, that's the reason why I'm not saying, yeah, go follow. I mean, so, or go check him out on this channel, or, you know, this, that's where he is. And that's why Benjamin Creme never said where he was speaking, you know, what channel he was speaking on, and those kind of things, for this very, very reason. I know you're saying this for a whole different reason, but it does kind of prove what Benjamin Creme is saying and the truth of who and what Maitreya is as a teacher, really. So hopefully that adds to it, and hopefully it. And then also in terms of the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall this coming of the Son of Man be. The coming of the Son of Man has been going on for eons. It's not a one-time event that will happen at some point, as the Christians believe, as the Buddhists believe, as the Hindus believe, as the Muslims believe the Imamati to be. It's a process. It's a long-term process that's not going to end even after we all recognize Maitreya as Maitreya. It's about the awakening of humanity. It's about us coming together finally as one family, seeing each other as that, and tackling all these problems that we've created for ourselves. But yet, even then, it's not going to end. It's going to be an ongoing thing. And the teacher will be here for centuries, for 2,500 years, never leaving, teaching humanity. This is, you know, and he's going to have his group of teachers with him, teaching humanity how to build, you know, the economic structures to support that truth that we are one, educational systems to do that, healthcare systems to support that. But yet also teaching each another so that we're one, that we are one and unique within a bunch of other sons of men and sons of God that are also unique in that same way. Teaching us what true freedom is. Freedom of thought, to be ourselves, truly to be ourselves and not to follow anyone. That's what Maitreya, the teacher, is here doing. But it starts back to what, you know, I brought up about with Evan Bella Adam about the manifestation of love. It starts with the principle of sharing, really. So all this stuff. But when Maitreya says, without sharing there could be no justice, without justice there could be no peace, without peace there could be no future. It's not a future of more than the same. It's a future quite extraordinary, because it's about the awakening of the love nature of it within the hearts of all of us. You know, and we don't really have an idea of what that means yet, but it's incredible. And Maitreya will start to explain to us about the need to do this, on how to do it, but also what it will mean when we do. We'll see the potential that we have as a group of people living on this planet amongst other planets in that same way because of the teacher. But it has nothing really to do with ideology, just as the principle of sharing has nothing to do with ideology. But I wouldn't be surprised if Maitreya might never say he is the Christ. He might say those are names he's referred to as, but I think that's about as close as he'll ever be to coming to saying something like that. So hopefully this adds to it. But I really do appreciate everybody's comments. Remember, you guys take care and enjoy the day. And help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.